Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about turnkey real estate and why you should buy passive income properties. Let's start with the definition of a turnkey property. A turnkey property is something where you have a fully renovated home, apartment building, or anything else of that nature that you can immediately have performing for you. It also has property management already in place, minimizing the amount of time and effort that you have to put in to the rental. So what is the key to this phrase? It's time and effort. Okay? A rental property that you do on your own versus a turnkey, time is the big difference. I'm sure you could find a similarly performing property to what we could do for you, but imagine the acquisition time. How many days, weeks, or months you have to go into finding the right deal. Once you find the right deal, then you've got to be able to get a contractor in there to bid it out. What is it going to take to get this thing rent ready? Once it's rent ready, then we've got to do advertisements and open houses to be able to find a good quality tenant. You're probably not going to take the first tenant that comes along. So we're months into the process now between rehab and advertising and renting before you actually have this thing performing for you. And you've put in a lot of time to make that happen. From that point forward, even if you have similar numbers, you're talking about an amazing amount of difference of time and energy. So why do we talk about time so much? Why is the focus here time? Well, you've heard the phrase before, I'm sure. If you want to become financially independent, you have to have your money working for you instead of you working for your money. This is the difference between active income and passive income. We need more passive income to buy back our time. Active income is what most people have. It's a job. Wages, salaries, tips, commissions, income from a business where you're actually putting time in on a daily or weekly basis. In the real estate world, this is flipping properties, wholesaling, and actively renting like we talked about. Passive income is income that is received on a regular basis where there is little or no additional effort that has taken place after that initial investment. Other examples outside of real estate could be interest earnings or royalties or portfolio returns, but in real estate, we're going to talk about passive income properties or rentals from a turnkey scenario. Why is this important? I'm a father of two children. I'm a husband, and for me, my most precious thing is spending time with my kids, going to a soccer game for my son, going to a play for my daughter, spending time playing games, or just simply being together doing the things that we care about. When I'm trading time for money and creating active income, I've got to sacrifice my time away from these things. Okay? Now, obviously, I feel justified because I'm providing home, shelter, food, clothes, the things that we need to survive, but I'm away from them at the same time. So even though I'm doing something good for my family, I'm away from them. If I can create enough passive income to create the same level of income without having to trade the time, then of course that's a much better scenario. So when we look at that, passive income pays you 168 hours a week, every hour, every day. You may only put in a small amount of time every week or month to be able to make that happen. An active income, let's look at the bottom of this chart. Most people work a 40-hour work week. They get paid 40 hours. So that means you are working 25% of the time and getting paid 25% of the time. What would you rather have? Income that lasts all week, every hour of every day, or making money 25% of the time? And that's working hard. That's a 40-hour work week. That's what most people have. Even if you're a workaholic and you say, I'm putting in 60, 80 hours, you're getting paid less half the time. Okay, so let's start getting a better return on our time, and this is a great way to do this. So why turnkey? Why would we invest in a turnkey instead of some of these other options that are out there to create passive income? Well, number one, you're going to get immediate return in the Midwest, where we'd suggest for you to invest into properties right now of around 10 to 13% cash on cash return. I'll define that for you here in just a moment, but that means immediately you put in your money, you're going to get immediate return just off of the cash flow of the property. There is little to no time involved in the day-to-day. Once again, we're buying back our time. You don't need to fix or repair anything. Sometimes that's not just an issue of time, but just ability. Okay, if a pipe breaks, do you really know plumbing? I mean, if something electrical goes wrong and you need to replace the main electrical panel, is that really something that you want to tackle? Is that something you know how to do? Or maybe there's a physical limitation for you that you can't do it even if you wanted to do it, or you know how to do it. So again, in this scenario, you don't have to worry about those things. I had a gentleman who came and talked to me, and he was from San Francisco. He called me up and said, Scott, I want to buy some properties. in the Midwest, and the reason I want to buy them there instead of here is my market sucks. It is not a good market for rental properties. I said, okay, well, I'll buy it. Why? What's wrong with San Francisco? Why can you not rent properties there? He says, well, you can. It's just not a good return on investment. See, the medium home price right now in San Francisco is $1.2 million. Medium home price in the Midwest is $150. Well, obviously, that's a dramatic difference. But, if we can rent the property for enough money in San Francisco, it's still a good deal. So I said, well, I can rent that property out in the Midwest that costs $150,000 for roughly about $1,500 a month. What can you rent your $1.2 million home for in San Francisco? And his answer was about $3,000 or $4,000 a month. Well, you start running the math. If you wanted the same return, you'd have to rent it out for $12,000 a month. Okay, so we're 3-4 times off on our return on investment here. So local markets just may not work for you, may not be an option for you to buy there for market reasons that are outside of your control. So the nice thing about Turnkey is because you're not finding the properties, you're not having to be there on a daily or weekly basis, it doesn't matter where they're at. You can buy properties anywhere that you want. In fact, we have people that come to us, not just from all places in the United States, but all 4 corners of the world. We have people that invest with us from just about anywhere that you could think of. You don't have to worry about tenants. We're reducing risk, and you're still able to take advantage of some of the amazing tax breaks that come along with this. So let's look at equity return. If you came to me today and said, Scott, I got $100,000, it's sitting in an account, it doesn't matter if it's cash or self-directed funds or retirements or anything else. If you come to me and say, I've got $100,000, I'd like to invest in the Midwest, my first option is going to be, let's leverage that money. Let's take that $100,000 and let's use it as a 20% down payment, and that allows us to purchase $500,000 of real estate. In this scenario, that's probably about 4 or 5 properties. So in that, equity building on an annual basis, you're building off of the 500,000, not the 100 that you put in. Okay, but your return on that investment is based off the 100, not the. So we look at that, you have $500,000. If we use a conservative 4% equity growth a year, that's $20,000 a year that you make just off equity, even if you boarded these things up. Okay, just that alone, you're doubling the S&P returns over the last 10 years. Okay, last 15 years, since 2000 till now. So I guess that's an 18-year time frame. Average return in the S&P is 7%. Okay, so we've already doubled, almost tripled that. Why do we compare Turnkey to stock? Well, stock is a very common investment for a lot of people. In fact, most people's retirement programs, if they've invested into a retirement program with their job, they're given the option really just to be in the market. Now they can say it's conservative and aggressive inside of the market, but you're still just market one way or the other. And the problem with the market is you can have huge swings. We've all heard of the Enron stories where people had their entire life savings wiped out overnight. Okay? You will never see that scenario in real estate. Worst real estate crash we ever had in 2008. First of all, it wasn't even because of real estate itself. It was because of subprime lending and lenders that got greedy, and it affected the real estate market because of it. It was really a financial crisis, but the real estate prices were affected. So in that scenario, though, if you owned a property since 2000 and 2008 rolls around and we have this huge quote-unquote real estate crash, you're still renting your property out. Your renter still's got to pay rent. They still need a place to live, and you still create a cash flow that year. While everybody else in the market, in a bad turn in the stock market, are losing hand over fist. One of the years in the last 18 that I looked at showed a negative 30% average. Negative 30% average return. That means some people were losing 50, 60, 70% or more in 1 year. Imagine if you'd saved up $100,000 in retirement from many, many years of working hard at a job just to find out, half or more than half of it's gone. I mean, that to me is not what I want to put myself into. And if you're the type of person who wants something a little bit more safe and secure, Turnkey is definitely an option you want to consider. The younger you are, the more risky you might tend to be, but you still have a percentage that's going to be conservative. Nobody is going to want their portfolio, 100% of some certain style investment. Turnkey real estate properties fall into the conservative model. In fact, they're probably about as conservative investment as you can imagine out there in the world today. If you're older, it might be the opposite. Somebody that's 55 golden years that, already retired or getting close to retirement, saved a lot of money throughout the years, they're going to say, I don't want my money to be anywhere at risk. I've worked hard. I've saved hard. I want to get cash flow. I want to be able to retire. I don't want to work anymore, but I want a conservative investment. And so that person's going to have a larger percentage of their portfolio in conservative investments and therefore need more assets like turnkey real estate. Before you look at that final 7% return and say there's no way, think about what we've talked about already. 20% annual return just off equity growth. Now, this property better cash flow. In this scenario, you're going to have 4 or 5 properties. They better cash flow. Otherwise, you're not talking to a good turnkey provider. Okay. In this scenario, between all 4 or 5 properties, I've evaluated that you're going to make about $1,000 a month net return. This is after mortgages, interest, insurance, paying your property management fees, all the things that you're going to go into, this particular type of asset. You're still getting an additional cash flow of $12,000 a year. So we're making $20,000 a year on equity. We're making $12,000 a year on cash flow. Tax breaks are going to add another $10,000, $20,000. You think about your interest alone is $23,000 interest write-off on a mortgage of $400,000 or several mortgages. You're going to depreciate your assets. You're going to get an additional tax break off of depreciation. And we're not even going into depth here today. This can actually grow on your tax breaks. There's all sorts of other expenses between vehicles and cell phones and dinners out, and I could go on and on and on. This is money you're spending anyways. People, these are things that you are not writing off right now, unless you have a business that you're doing that with, that you can start to use these tax breaks, and they're going to give you additional, basically net dollars to you at the end of the year. So you start adding up these numbers, $20,000, $12,000, $15,000. You're talking about a 47% return off of your $100,000 investment in year 1. You start running that through a couple of years, you're going to probably come back with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year in return. A couple of years from now, you do it again. Now, instead of having 5 properties, in a couple of years from now, you got 10. And then you start running that, and before you know it, you have 20. And this is how true wealth is created. It doesn't take as long as you might think. Okay, it may have taken you a long time to save your $100,000 in equity, or in cash, or capital, or retirement funds, or whatever it is that you got your money from. In fact, for a lot of people that I talk to, this is the bulk of what they've saved over their entire life. Okay, you can put this into a turnkey investment opportunity. And you can find out that while you let your money work for you, again, instead of you working for your money, it grows and compounds much, much faster. Okay. So how do we take advantage of this? Well, the first thing is you got to find the right team. See, most people look for homes first, which is understandable. Let's just take the San Francisco gentleman as an example again. If he decided on his own that he wants to invest in the Midwest, he's going to start looking at different cities and markets. St. Louis, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, Quad City. I mean, he's going to look at these different markets, and he's going to say, all right, let me find some homes in here that make sense, that I can afford, that have good numbers of returns. And even if he finds one, well, wait a minute, do I know anybody that can manage in the area? Do I know anybody that can rehab or fix up the property? I mean, now you're talking about putting a lot of time and a lot of energy in just to being able to get that property in a manageable situation. The way you should do it is the opposite. You should find the right team first. Once you find a good team, a team that you can trust, that you can believe in, that you feel like can provide to you good, solid service, they'll bring you the investment opportunities. They'll say, hey, here's some properties we've got. Here's the areas, here's the locations, here's the choices that you have, and they'll narrow it down with you, and they'll help you find the right one. And maintenance, vacancy, all these things play a major role. And, the reason we talk about this is on paper. When you're doing your internet searches, you may find a home that makes a lot of sense that really isn't a good investment. We'll get to that here in just a moment. So what do we look at? We look at a lot of things, economic factors. Okay. Is there job growth in the area? What kind of commercial development is happening? What's the population like? If you have a city where the population has a negative growth, there's going to be an issue there on getting properties rented out consistently. Does these properties do the cash flow on a monthly basis? Again, there's a lot of turnkey providers that'll sit down and say, oh, hey, this is a great performing asset and it breaks even every month. I don't want something that breaks even. We need cash flow. We need positive ROI on a monthly basis. Is it affordable to you? You know, there's nothing worse than sitting down, going through and finding a bunch of properties that you can't buy. Okay, we want to sit down. We want to look at your personal scenario, find a property that is within your means. Rentability. Why do we talk about rentability? You can have a great property that nobody wants. When I say a great property, I mean on paper it looks good, but maybe the kitchen is, is so small and tiny that nobody wants to actually have that house. Or maybe you're across from the garbage dump. Who wants to live across from the garbage dump? Again, if the numbers make sense, numbers aren't everything. Numbers are definitely important, but they're not everything. And all these other things that we've already talked about, property management, schools, university, locations, quality of living in the area. Are you buying in a bad location, crime rate? So let's look at a house. This is just an example of a property. Now, when I look at the picture of this property, I think, man, this looks great. Well manicured, got a, good lawn, garden looking area up front. And I like the looks of this property. And then I look at the numbers and I get more excited. I think, man, I could buy this property for $80,000. That means I only have to put $15,000 down. That's great. It rents for more than 1% of the purchase price. I'm getting cash flow, ROI. Let's do it. But hold on, wait a minute. Why am I saying this looks like a good deal? The reason I'm saying this is because one thing that from San Francisco that you may not understand is the actual location of this property is horrible. Okay? There's areas that we refer to as D and F locations where you can buy a property that seems good, but the type of tenant, the type of person that's willing to rent in that area is not who you want. Now, some people call this the ghetto or the war zone. I'm just going to call it a D and an F location, meaning we just don't recommend it. There's reasons why. School systems can be horrible and on and on. Well, why does it matter? I mean, people still live in these areas, right? Well, it matters because this type of person, this type of renter is prone to higher vacancy. Now, vacancy is a really nice way of saying, you're going to get a tenant who's going to move in, pay a month or two rent, and then they're going to squat. They're going to say, I'm not paying you no more. Because they know that they're not going to have to move their very first month. They know that you're going to give them a little bit of time to, quote unquote, try and pay rent. And then you're going to give them a little bit more time to get out of that property. And then before you know it, they've been there 3-4 months without paying rent. Okay. When they leave, there's higher maintenance issues. Tenants are harder on the property. Okay. Just 2 bad months and you've lost your entire year's ROI in this scenario. So we're going to say, don't buy this. It looks good, but it's not. Here's a similar example, but much better. Okay, location, we fixed this. We're going to tell you we already know this location. We have lots of rentals in the area performing very well and has been for our other investors for a long time. Now, we've increased the price a little bit to get in a better area. We got better rent. Our ROI is actually less. We got 13% ROI. It doesn't look as good on paper as the other property. In fact, the other one you might think, man, I could get 2 properties for that. But you got to remember, it's about what is actually performing. In this area, you got good renters. They pay well. We're going to tell you this is the one that you want to buy. All right, so how do we get started? Well, initially, you need to have a consultation. Okay, if you call me right now, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about where are you financially? What is going on with you right now? The first thing that we're going to talk about is how do we invest? Are you doing traditional financing with you? Do you have cash set aside? It may be a commercial loan makes more sense because the amount of properties that you want to buy, we can wrap them up and do a portfolio loan and give you a better option. Maybe you have some retirement funds that you want to self-direct and use non-recourse loans for. There's all sorts of scenarios. Give me a call, sit down, let's talk about you, where you're at right now, what is your purchasing power, and that allows me to be able to tell you what kind of properties we can provide for you in your scenario. Give me a call, 816-293-3450. Again, my name is Scott Lunger, and my email address is scott@cashflowprops.net. We just need about 15, 20 minutes with you to be able to go through that initial consultation, and then we can take it from there. Look forward to talking with you and helping you out.